Okay, so we have finally reached the last episode for my Halloween / Dia de Muertos stuff. Okay, so this video is going to be kind of a Dia de Muertos One Piece Straw Hats type video. So, I have a mask and I'm going to wear it for a little while for the video. So the point of this video was throughout all of One Piece, pretty much almost every member of the Straw Hats has lost someone that they loved, someone that was important to them, someone that was impactful on their life. And I just kind of thought that it would be kind of interesting if the Straw Hats ended up in a place that kind of celebrated Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And so I was like trying to figure that out, and I'm like, okay, well, first I'll do a little bit of explanation of what Day of the Dead is for people who may not know what that is. So, Day of the Dead is a holiday that is typically celebrated in Mexico and other countries around Mexico. It is somewhat associated with the Catholic celebrations of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day that are November 1st and November 2nd for those. So, we have those days. They come just after All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, of course. And they've been portrayed in, multiple movies and shows as various things. The two main ones that I will probably be referencing throughout the course of this video are, of course, Coco from Pixar. That's what the shirt is from. It's Remember Me. It's the song from Coco that is the main song. And then the other one is Book of Life, which I reviewed yesterday. I reviewed it yesterday in regards to seeing it, but I actually am going to review it the day after I record this. So, I've always liked the concept of Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. Once I was, once it was explained to me kind of what it was. In the Mexican culture, it is much more of a celebration and commonly portrayed as, a celebration for like the lives of these people as opposed to the mourning of their death. Yes, of course, you're sad that they're gone, but the whole concept of Dia de los Muertos is that the people that are on the other side, the people who have passed on, have the ability on this one night a year to come back. Doesn't mean you can see them, but it's supposed to be like this way of inviting them back into your homes, back into your families, for a night. So it's like, again, the whole family is together. And this is portrayed throughout Coco and through Book of Life in a couple of different ways. But there are things that are very similar during the courses of the movies. And I will be doing a review of Coco when I go through and do all of the Pixar movies. I just figured, well, I have one Day of the Dead video that I'm going to do, and that'll be about Book of Life, and then I'll do Coco when I get to Coco in the Pixar catalog. And obviously, as I stated before, I am not Hispanic by any means. As far as I'm aware, I am not. I'm way too pale for that. I am way too pale for that. But I've always liked that concept. And if I apologize if you find this is insulting. It's not meant to be insulting. It's supposed to be a celebration of Day of the Dead, because I do love that concept of like having your family come back, because I've lost family. We've all lost family. I've lost grandparents. I've lost uncles. I've lost cousins. Dogs. That you miss them and you want them to be able to come back, because then it feels like, for at least for a little while, that they're back with your family. My church celebrates, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. We do celebrate that, where we remember those who have passed in the past year, and just, previous ones who have passed. And so it's just like this remembering of the people. So it's like they're gone, but they're not forgotten. And there are a few elements that I do very much like. And one of them are the altars that they make, or the ofrendas. And I apologize if I mispronounce any of these words. The ofrendas, or the altars, are usually have pictures all over them of the different people who have passed on. Usually photos, but I've also seen paintings used as well. Depending on, we didn't have photography at this point in time, 100 years ago was kind of when photography started, which I will get to this, my camera devil fruit, or my picture devil fruit, in a little bit, for why I made that, and why I did a video about it beforehand. And I'm actually going to take this mask off. So we see the ofrendas in homes, and they also start in like cemeteries, where like around the gravestones and the graves or the mausoleums of the different people of the family members that have passed. They will decorate them and put food out, and they will put out these. There's certain types of flowers that they use. Mexican campaschiles. I apologize. They're like a marigold type of flower. They're beautiful looking. And of course, we have the painted skulls are, of course, another big thing in regards to a Day of the Dead. They just started out as like an art piece that someone's, started to do, and then they built up from there. I'm actually going to move this to make sure that it doesn't fall over, because I don't want that to break. And, the altars are made, the ofrendas are made, and you have pictures there. You put out the people's favorite foods. In Coco, the movie Coco, they put out, because the family makes shoes. That's what the family has been doing for the past several generations, is making shoes. They put different shoes out that were like shoes that were made by that specific person, as well as pictures, as well as food. It's offerings, put out the person's favorite food. People wear the masks that are like the skeleton type masks, and lots of those other things. And one of the rules that they have in Coco in regards to people being able to cross back over is someone has to have your picture on their ofrenda. And that allows you to be able to cross over from the land of the dead into the land of the living. Coco has that set up. Book of Life is a little bit different, because there's not really, there's portraits that they show in the movie, but there's not really like photos, because I don't quite remember if that lands exactly in the time frame when, there was photo technology, but it may not have been widely spread. And so we get those references in Book of Life and Coco. And of course, part of what goes on with Day of the Dead is there are two kind of areas in the, in the beyond. There's the land of the remembered, which is, of course, this big, bright, vibrant place filled with celebrations and parties and everything. And, this is where the people live who are remembered. And as long as you are remembered by someone, you stay in this area. You're allowed to stay here. You do not pass on. So I'll go over that in a minute. There's like parties and celebrations all over the place in the land of the remembered, because they are being kept alive to a degree by the memories of the people who are still alive in the land of the living. And then there's the other side of that, which is the land of the forgotten. In Book of Life, these are two separate lands. In Coco, the two kind of overlap. In Book of Life, it is you're just in this land until you are forgotten. You're in the land of the remembered until you are forgotten by everyone, until the final person who even knew vaguely who you were dies. Now, you do have the rule that your stories can, of course, be passed down, but they have to be passed down by a person that knew you in life. So, like, I can pass down a story about my grandmother on both sides, about my grandmas that are on both sides of my family, but because I never met my grandfather on my mom's side, because he died long before I was born, I cannot pass on a story about him. Well, I can pass it on, but as long as it was told to me by my mom or my grandma or by any of my aunts or uncles that knew him, or his siblings, of course. And of course, we do still tell those stories and pass them down, and we still have pictures of my grandfather around. And, my grandpa on my dad's side just celebrated his 90th birthday. Earlier this month, midway through October is when he celebrated it. This is November 2nd that this will be going up. But we see all of this stuff. And then the other side of the land of the remembered is, of course, the land of the forgotten, which in Book of Life is portrayed as this very desolate, empty area, because nobody remembers who you are. So there's no parties. It's just sadness. And you kind of stay there until you fade away. And in Coco, it's those who are being forgotten, who don't really have family members to like remember them, but they're still remembered by someone. They're kind of pushed off to the side and left to live in like a more decrepit area, as opposed to the people that live in the bright and vibrant area of the land of the living, or the land of the remembered. And in both of them, there is this concept of the final death. That when every single memory of you from someone, from everyone that you ever knew, or stories that were passed down are forgotten, then you fully die. This is beautifully illustrated in Coco when the boy Miguel, who goes into the land of the dead, he's not dead, but he gets sent there. And if you've seen Coco, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen Coco, go watch Coco. It is beautifully done. Go watch Book of Life too. Both of them are beautifully done. And what Miguel sees is he sees this character who is, he's literally on his last legs. Like the last person who remembered him is either fully forgetting who he is or is dying or died. And then he passes away. He literally just kind of not quite flakes away like in Infinity War when everybody gets snapped away by Thanos, when half of everyone gets snapped away. Not like quite that, but like very similar to that, where they just kind of vanish and, they can't be remembered. Again, I mean, like the people who were still dead, who knew him, know who he was, but it has to be someone in the land of the living that remembers who you are. And of course, the whole point of Coco, the whole story of Coco is to help a family remember someone and make sure that their memories are passed on and protect, stop a tarnished memory, or fix a tarnished memory. So now we're going to move into the One Piece section of this. So, when I was trying to figure this out for how I could pull this off, for like, okay, well, how could the Straw Hats end up in a place that could celebrate Day of the Dead? And I'm like, well, there's lots of different countries in One Piece. And initially I was like, okay, well, if they land in a country that's kind of based on Mexico, like during the time frame when they're celebrating Day of the Dead, then they would get it explained to them as to what Day of the Dead was. This big carnival festival type thing is going on, celebration, and they would get it explained to them. And I'm like, wasn't there a country that was already based on Mexico in One Piece? And there was. There is the Shishano Kingdom, the Shishano Kingdom, who their king is King Tacos. Okay, Oda. And he's the king of this country. We see him at Reverie. Levely, whatever you want to call it. We see him there. We don't really know too much about him or his country, but the translation for the kingdom, the name of the kingdom, Shishano, translates to kind of Day of the Dead, land of the dead, kingdom of the dead. For the way that it translates out in Japanese, translates into, English/Spanish translates into that. And we haven't seen the country. We don't know where it's located. It could be in the New World. It could be in one of the Four Blues. It could be in the Calm Belt. It could be in, the first half of the Grand Line in Paradise. We have no idea where the country is. I even double-checked to see if they'd stated where in the world this country was, but I couldn't find anything that specifically stated where it was from, where exactly in orientation to the rest of the world that it was. I'm like, so if the Straw Hats happen to land here, first of all, there's like a big leap of faith in the fact that first they have to get there, but because of the fact that Nami wants to, draw a map of the entire world, she would then want to go to those countries. So they would eventually end up finding their way there so Nami can draw her map. And for all we know, like this country might end up being something that could be an ally in the future, but I don't necessarily think that'll end up becoming the case, but I could be wrong. But like they end up on this island, and either there's like a couple of possibilities for why they would be allowed on this island in the first place without immediately being arrested by the Marines, because this is a world government associated kingdom, because they obviously pay the tribute because they're at Reverie and they're protected by the Marines. So why wouldn't they hand them over? So I'm like, either A, this is either after Luffy has become king of the pirates, and he wants, they're still traveling around the world, so Nami can do that, and so Frankie can, have his ship sail all the way around the world. and such, and test its metal, test the Adam Wood and his carpentry skills. And they end up on the island, and it's either A, after Luffy is the Pirate King, and they've revealed to the world, like, the true history of the world. Somehow that got, out and about, and the world government's been toppled, and, the Straw Hats are recognized as some of the good pirates and such, so they're, like, allowed in different kingdoms. They've proven that they're good. Or the other side is, like, the other option, I'm like, okay, it's either that or like during like the Dia de los Muertos celebration that they would have in the Shoshano Kingdom would be maybe they allow pirates to come in, and it's just more like, you don't cause trouble, we're not going to arrest you, and if you leave by the end of the celebration, then we're not going to arrest you because this is a celebration and we don't want to cause anybody any harm during the celebration. So I'm just like, those are the two options I'm given there. It's either A, the Straw Hats are already recognized as like good pirates by the world, by whoever is now in charge, and they're allowed to go to the island without getting arrested because their bounties aren't around anymore, or the country is just like, okay, as long as you come in and you don't cause problems, you could be part of the celebration, and we'll even explain to you what the celebration is. And, you don't cause trouble, we won't arrest you as long as you leave before everything's, before the whole festival is finished. Type of thing. Those are the two options I had. So I kind of figured that, like, okay, so if the Straw Hats land on this island, land on Shoshano, land in the Shoshano Kingdom, again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing some of this stuff. If they land there and, like, they're welcomed onto the island one way or the other, and they're, traveling around the island, and they get explained what's going on because they see, oh, they're getting ready to do this big celebration. I wonder what this is about. And, they have some local or whatever explain to them, oh, we're getting ready to celebrate our Day of the Dead, our Dia de los Muertos. And they're like, what's that? And, like, I can automatically picture Usopp and Chopper and possibly Nami being like, there aren't going to be zombies here, are there? type thing. And they're like, no, I don't know what a zombie is, but no, this isn't about zombies. A whole Thriller Bark reference of them being terrified, which I can just so picture that. It was like, oh, this is where we celebrate the dead and where we believe that they can come back and kind of walk among us. So I don't want to deal with zombies again, type thing. And what ends up, and like they get it explained, it was like, no, it's just a celebration, and we have these ofrendas that we put our loved ones' pictures on, and we put out their favorite foods, and we tell stories about them and remember them, and there's a big party involved. There's lots of food and drink and celebration and everything. Zoro's like, did I hear drink involved? I'm in. Luffy, I heard food. I'm in. Sanji, I gotta make new food. I'm good. It's like something that would appeal to them. And like they explain, well, like, we can, you can make an ofrenda, and, you can, celebrate your, past loved ones and such like that, those that you've lost over the years and such. And they're like, okay, so how does that work? Like, do we have, and then I'm going through my head of, okay, well, who would have a picture of someone that they lost? Luffy may have kept one of Ace's bounty posters. He may have been able to hold on to one of those at some point. Robin could have a bounty poster of her mother's that maybe by some chance she'd managed to hold on to during the whole time when she was on the run, even when she was working for Baroque Works, and between leaving, kind of getting stabbed in the back by Crocodile, and then, exiled from Baroque Works and then joining the Straw Hats, that maybe somehow through all of that time frame she'd managed to hold on to like a poster of her mother, one of her mother's wanted posters. Jinbei, of course, could have a wanted poster of Fisher Tiger. And Frankie could have a picture that he has, because we've seen like the picture of Tom's workers that both Frankie and Iceberg, I think, have a copy of this picture. That is, them and Tom and Kokoro and the frog. During the time frame when Tom was still alive, or supposedly still alive. So, they would have that. There's a possibility that maybe Nami could have a picture of Belmere, but we don't ever see any as far as I'm aware. And I don't know if by some happenstance that like maybe they got a picture of Nami, Belmere, and Nojiko together when the two girls were still little, and maybe that's in their house somewhere, but like it's with Nojiko and not with Nami, so she wouldn't have like a picture. And like Luffy, as I said, Luffy would have Ace's poster. Zoro with Kuina wouldn't really have any picture of her, so I highly doubt he would have that. Usopp could have a picture of his mother, of Bachina, Banchina, however you pronounce it. He could have a picture of her. Sanji with Sora, with his mother, I highly doubt that Sanji would have a photo of her at all, barring like some point in time when he was still, because he wouldn't have had it when he escaped Germa when he was a child. But when he was like visiting the cat, visiting them, forced to visit, when he was, during the Totland arc, when he was interacting with his father and his siblings again, I guess there's a possibility that maybe he found a picture of his mother and he kept that and he maybe took it with him. I don't necessarily think that Chopper would have a picture of Dr. Heroluck. He could, but I doubt it. As I mentioned, Robin could have one of Volvia's posters. Brooke could have one of Yorkie's wanted posters, because I'm pretty sure Yorkie had a wanted poster, because Brooke had a wanted poster from when he was a pirate, and from when he was a pirate 52 years ago. But when he was, when he was alive, he had a wanted poster, and I think Yorkie still had, probably had a wanted poster if Brooke had a wanted poster, because Yorkie was the captain, Calico Yorkie, so he would have had a bounty. So there's that possibility that, Brooke has one of those. And then, Jinbei had Fisher Tiger, and, he may have somehow kept one of Fisher Tiger's posters at some point, wanted bounty posters. And the same thing with him, he would also have Otohime in his past, with the fact that he very much adored her for what she was trying to do. And, there's the giant picture there that's kind of, that they had that was the memorial for her. So I guess there's a possibility, but I would leave that more of maybe, the Neptune family would definitely have pictures of Otohime, portraits of her and such. So I'm like, okay, well, some of them would have the possibility of having a picture or a poster, and some of them wouldn't. So I'm like, what if they say, what if we don't have a picture of them? Is there something else? And they're like, well, there's this person in town, and they ate this devil fruit. They ate this devil fruit that allows them to create a picture based on a memory, which is the whole freaking reason I made this thing. It's the whole reason I made that thing, was because I like the concept of they get explained, oh, there's this person here in town and she's kind of this big deal. She or he or they or whoever are kind of this big deal, and they get a lot of work this time of year, but they have a devil fruit power that allows them to, you think of a memory of a person or a place or a thing or something, and they can then touch you and then touch, canvas, picture, paper, whatever, and they can copy that image onto the paper or the canvas, or I think I said in the video, a wall or whatever the case may be. They can copy it onto that and make an image of it. That is pretty much the same thing as a photo or a painting, depending on how they want to adjust it. And, they kind of via the rules of that qualifies for being this thing that allows them to come back. You have that way. And, so it's oh, well, maybe they're well, I have something, but I don't. So why don't we go and see this person? And they want to try to do this whole festival thing because Robin would be interested in learning about this other culture. And, I'm sure the others would be well, this sounds kind of interesting. And you mentioned booze, and Zoro is already interested in whatever's going on around him. And same thing with Luffy and food. Also, it would be kind of this thing where, Luffy could have it explained to him that it kind of allows this person to, we believe that on this day, or, this day and the next day, that, the souls, the spirits of our dead loved ones have the ability to kind of return from the other side. We can't physically interact with them and we can't physically see them, but they're able to come back and be among us, and kind of our family is together again. And, that's why we remember them. We tell stories about them, and, we continuously do that to make sure that their memories stay alive. And, for Robin, it would also be Clover and Saul. That would also be people that she would want to remember, and she probably wouldn't have photos of them. The only reason I would say she would have a bounty poster of, Olvia is just simply because of the fact of, like, she was on the run, and Olvia's poster may have still been out there because, until they were very sure that everyone except for Robin from O'Hara was dead, Olvia's poster may have still been out there, and Robin may have somehow gotten her hands on one because she's like, this is my mother, and I at least want to have something to remind me of her. So we have that moment, and like she wouldn't have had any pictures of Saul or of Clover or of the rest of the architects, that was wrong, the archaeologists that were at the library, but she at least has something of her mother's. I mean, like, she still has, like, her intellect that was kind of, she was trained in this by the other archaeologists with her intellect and everything, so that kind of allows them to live on. And, of course, Ace's devil fruit, the Marimarinomi, of course, lives on in Sabo. So there's that. And, to a degree, Luffy has his red hawk, of course, that he uses that is an homage to Ace. And, Zoro uses the Watawichi emoji that was, Kuina's sword. Nami has her tattoo that has, the pinwheel and the tangerine. Usopp doesn't really have anything to remind him of his mother beyond his nose. Sanji doesn't really have anything beyond, like, his, his kind of love for cooking came because he wanted to, cook his mom food and everything. His kindness kind of lives on at her. And, at the moment in the manga, Sanji is kind of going through a little bit of an identity crisis with, like, the, his body modifications that were made that Judge made on him when, when he was, when him and his brothers were inside of Zoro when they were in the womb, that he is now, going through that change where, he's starting to get, like, the iron skin and stuff like that to the point where he's much more durable. So, he's going through that identity crisis right now, which is kind of funny because he's like, I'm recording this just after the chapter, I think it was 1028 or so, when he's like running around trying to run away from Queen, and Queen's chasing him because he's like, just leave me alone, I have to figure out what's going on here, leave me alone, Queen, come back here and put on your raid suit, I want to fight you. I want to fight the Germatech, come back here. You broke my sword. We have that. Sanji's going through that identity crisis. Chopper's, of course, ability to allow Hero Luck to live on is in his medical knowledge. And that also, kind of allows, Dr. Kureha to live on, but she's still perfectly fine as far as we're aware. There's also a possibility, like, maybe Dr. Kureha had, like, a picture of Hero Luck somewhere. Tom's legacy lives on in both Frankie and Iceberg, and the fact that, Iceberg is running Water 7 and is keeping it, alive and keeping it going and everything like that as its mayor and as the head of the Galley Law Company. And then, of course, Frankie is, of course, keeping, part of it alive as well, with the fact that he built the Thousand Sunny, based on blueprints that he knew from Tom for the Oro Jackson, and, built out of atom wood and everything, and he wants to sail it around the world. Brook kind of carries on, the dreams of his crew, Yorkie and the rest of the crew, because he wants to, of course, he's got the tone dial that has the recording of all of them singing on it and everything one last time for Laboon, and he's, going to get to Laboon at some point. Jinbei carries on with both Fisher Tiger and Dodohime's dream of wanting to have, wanting to have Fishman Island be free, and allowing the fishmen and the merfolk and everything to be able to live on the surface and not have to worry about becoming slaves. And I'm just like, I can see, like, the Straw Hats go to this person and they're like, okay, well, we need some pictures. And, it's like, depending on, like, how big of a picture they want, it costs a certain amount. But, I'm sure Nami would find a way to, like, haggle down the price. Because it's like, well, we're all going to need some. So you're going to get a fair amount out of all of us anyway. So, whatever. Or, like, can you do, like, a giant portrait thing where it's just, like, you touch each one of us while we're, touch one of us at a time, and, like, it just kind of, like, paints it onto, like, one giant portrait of them, which, by technicality, that would probably work fine. It would just be, like, they would kind of, like, get painted in alongside of each other, like, have Ace next to Kuina, next to Belmir, next to, Bachina, some of them popping up in the background and stuff like that for the ones that they're remembering. And, like, for Brook, it wouldn't just be Yorkie, it would be, like, the rest of his crew. And for Robin, it would be, her mother, of course, Olvia, and then, Clover and Saul, and then like the rest of the archaeologists that were at the library of O'Hara. And, for Frankie, of course, it would be Tom. For Fisher Tiger, for, Jinbei, it would be Fisher Tiger and Dodo Hime, painted into this giant portrait and everything. Like, maybe they're like, well, why don't we just do like a giant portrait, and then like, Frankie can like make like a really awesome frame for it, and then like put that somewhere on the sunny. That'll go, maybe not in the kitchen, because it might not, like in the kitchen dining room area, because it might get covered in food. But like he puts it like maybe somewhere, like they go to the person and they're like, yeah, sure, just, okay, all you get in line and start thinking of the person that you want to, have me, the person or the people that you want me to have put in the portrait. And then, like, they get the right size portrait, and she, like, measures it all out. Kind of, okay. And, like, she's, like, touching it, and then she, like, keeps touching each one of them, like, one at a time. Like, okay, Luffy, okay, we got Ace put on there, okay, Kamina, it's just, like, one after the other, getting them all onto the portrait. And, like, it looks like it was, like, and, like, she kind of, maybe she makes a comment, like, I just have to be a she that has this power. It could be a guy. I don't know. My uncle was a photographer, so it's just a he, she, whatever, that has the power. The devil fruit user for this, for the photo no mi, would, be able to make this giant portrait, but they would be like, I advise trying to think of them at a happy time, or at least, you're remembering of them as being happy and such like that, because, that type of a thing. And like, maybe Luffy just tries to like focus on like the last time that he saw Ace happy was, of course, when they were at, Alabasta. And for, Zoro, for Kuina, it would be like the moment when like they, they made their vow to both become the world's greatest swordsmen and such. And, he carries on that vow, of course, with, by using Watto, and by using, by training and being strong and everything like that. With Nami, it's like maybe the last time she saw her mother smiling, And another thing that I like that, and this technically has no bearing on this, but I just wanted to point it out, that a couple of weeks ago, one of the chapter covers, of course, was, Nami making a shirt that says "I am lion" on it, for like a little lion mink. And it's the same type of shirt that like her mother made for her when she was a kid, when we see in the flashback, when Nami was upset about like hand-me-downs and everything. So I just find that adorable. Nami has like a picture of, remembers Belmere smiling and everything like that. Maybe not right before Erlang shot her, but like earlier that day or a previous day, or like when she was telling her, I think you can do what you want to do with, making your mouth of the world. And, Usopp remembers like the last time that his mom was happy, when she wasn't sick or so. And, Sanji remembers, when his mother was still alive and when she was happy, when she, ate the bento boxes that he made for her, and, all this other stuff. And they're just like on down the list. They're just remembering, it's like, Chopper is remembering, when Hero was so happy and everything, it's like, I'm so happy for you, Chopper, and like, I'm so proud of you, and, all this other stuff. And, with Robin has like one memory of her mother, but there is still the moment where like, they were holding hands, and when, Olvia hugged Robin. So there's still that moment, but she has moments where she was laughing with Saul, and like all the stuff with Clover and the rest of the archaeologists, where she's laughing it up with them and having so much fun with them because they were her only friends on the island. With Tom, with Frankie, for Tom, it's remembering all the fun times that they had, fun or even hard times, or the celebrations for when they, built the, the sea train, when they got the Puffing Tom going and everything, And, for Brooke, it's, the fun times when he was on the crew with Yorkie and the rest of the crew before they got sick, and then before they had to split, and then before everybody, including himself, died, and then he came back, and then he got trapped on his ship for 50 years with the dead bodies of his friends that he basically cleaned up and kept in a closet, which is disturbing. And I still feel sorry for the fact that Brooke basically has, what happened with him and Robin in regards to fighting Black Maria, when they saw like the images of like their dead friends. Robin saw her mom and Clover and Saul, and, Brooke probably saw Yorkie and some of the other people that were on his crew as well. And like, so there's that. And then like with Jinbei, it would be maybe like, the last time that he saw Otohime happy, and like the last time that he saw Fisher Tiger happy before Fisher Tiger died and before Otohime was assassinated. So we get like all this giant portrait, and I just love this idea. And I don't have photo editing skills enough to try to make this portrait, but it would just be like big and gorgeous and beautiful. And I know people have done like portraits of like some of the other like the passed on family members of the one of the Straw Hats, like pictures of them like in the afterlife all being together and like watching over them. And like, yeah, if Law's there, he can have like Corazon and his Corazon, heart in Spanish. He can have Corazon, Roshanate there, and like all this other stuff. And because they're remembering the people that they lost. And like I just have this image of like this giant portrait. I don't know how big the portrait would be. It would depend on what Nami was willing to pay for it and how far she was able to whittle it down. But given the case, it would also be something that would make her crew really happy and stuff like that. She might be a little more willing to pay a little bit higher price to make sure that it's good quality type thing. Like, it makes this, big portrait that they do for that. And like, and like Frankie then makes like a nice, frame and everything that goes with it. And I was like, this frame is made of atom wood to make sure that the frame does not break at any given time. And like he like not laminates it, but like covers it so it's protected and everything, so it's not going to get like food splattered on it depending on where they put it. Maybe they'll like put it up in the library or something. In a place where it's not really going to get hurt, and where it'll stay safe. Like they do that and everything. And so we have those moments. We have that there, and I just love that concept of like them just having this giant portrait made of like all their loved ones that have passed on. And then I have two more that I'm going to put onto this, simply just because I want both of them to be Straw Hats. I'm pretty sure one of them is going to be a Straw Hat. I don't know about the other one yet, but I'm pretty sure at least one of them is. And that is Carrot and Yamato. And I'm pretty sure Yamato, most everybody is like, by the end of Wano, Yamato has to become a Straw Hat. They have to go off with the crew. They have to join the Straw Hat crew. They have to go off and join them. Because, Ace basically recommended them and like all this other stuff. It was like, they have to be that. It has to be, Yamato has to go with them. And then Carrot, because of course, I want Carrot to be a Straw Hat. I don't think at this point in time Carrot's going to be a Straw Hat. As much as I love her and as much as awesome as she is, I don't necessarily think she's going to be a Straw Hat. I love it, but I don't think so. But I'm in that Team Carrot and Team Yamato because they can both join. Because why is that a bad thing? So we have that. But like with Carrot, obviously the person that she would be remembering would be Pedro. Pedro would be the one that would get his picture on there as well, because of course he's the one that trained her in how to be a guardian. He's the one that helped with all of that. Guardian, Musketeers, whichever one that they were a part of. He's the one that trained her with that and helped her with that. And, he was her mentor and everything, trained her in how to use Electro and trained her, she went into Sulong form for him in order to, attack Daifuku and, stop his ships and everything like that. And, so we have that. And of course, so there's those. And then for Yamato, obviously it would be Odin. Odin would be the big one for her. Maybe somehow she like got a hold of one of Odin's bounty posters or something in the past, or, because she was there at the execution. So unfortunately her kind of memory of him would be at the execution to a degree, because I highly doubt that she saw him at all before the execution. But, maybe it was, at the execution was the first time that she saw him, but like, he was still smiling when he died. So, work that into the thing and everything. Why is Odin sweaty in the picture? Don't ask. Don't ask. And then also Ace to a degree for her as well. Because of course Ace was kind of her first friend that she had. And, he's gone, which of course goes into the line of, when Yamato and Kaido were fighting, and she's like, I have had friends. And then I love that people have taken that on, flipped that on its head and drawn pictures of Luffy and Ace with like Yamato in her Makami form. And like, they're just like, you have friends, Yamato, you have friends. Luffy is your friend. Momo is going to be your friend, is your friend at this point in time with everything. You've like Shinobu trusts you at this point in time, all this other stuff, you're going to get along great with the rest of the Straw Hats. You'll be fine. And so we have that, but I guess also kind of Toki can get thrown in there as well. But Yamato, I don't think Yamato ever saw what Toki looked like. So I don't think that Yamato would be able to have like a Toki put there, unless like somehow like I don't know, since maybe since Odin was out traveling for so long, maybe at some point in time, like they had like a family picture taken of like him and Toki and Momo and Hiyori, like once both of the babies were born and stuff like that. Well, they were either traveling with Whitebeard or traveling with Roger. Maybe they got like a picture taken of all four of them together at some point, and maybe that's like sitting in the logbook. It was like taped or whatever into the logbook. And like Yamato's kept that safe, so she has that or something. So we get all of that and everything, and I just love that concept of like, let them remember. And like I'm like 90 some percent sure that like Yamato is going to be joining the crew by the end of this. Carrots, I don't necessarily think so at this point in time. As much as I love her and I want her to, I don't think that's going to change. I don't think she's going to join, but she could join. I've seen artwork of like, why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't they just both join? Like they both sneak onto the ship the same way that like Nekomamushi and Itarashi snuck onto Whitebeard's ship and then stuck onto Roger's ship when like they followed Odin and when they followed Odin and when they followed Odin and Izo. Why can't they just hop on that way and like they both work together? No one's saying that they can't work together. No one's saying that the two of them wouldn't get along great. If Yamato goes off with them, which I'm pretty sure Yamato will. But we'll see what happens with that. It's like, this is whole just like, I would love it if they landed there and they did this. And insert whoever else by this point in time. If it is after Luffy's become the king of the pirates, maybe they have another crew member at that point in time or something like that. I don't know exactly what will happen, but like, they're there and they end up on the island and like they celebrate this, and it's like maybe they tell each other some more stories, and like it's just basically like the only way they get anything out of Zoro is they just like get him really drunk, and then like he's just like, I had this friend, her name was Kuina, this was her sword. You hold up Watto. This was her sword, and we made this vow that, we fought each other so many times and she beat me every single time when we were kids. And we made this vow that, we were both going to be the best swordsmen in the world. And then somehow the next day she fell down a flight of stairs and died. And then I got her sword from her dad, who is connected to Wano somehow, even though I don't know how. All this other stuff. Or it's like, whatever variation you want to go with for Kuina. I just go with the whole thing of like, she died, she fell down the stairs somehow and died, or she like ran off somewhere. I don't know. There's things that can be taken issue with that, but I'm just going to leave that alone for now. But that's what we have for this. I just kind of like, concept of like, Straw Hats land on this type of an island. They end up being part of this type of a celebration. They get like pictures made, or like individual pictures made, or like a portrait made of all of them together, of all of the, their, past family members together and everything. And then maybe they also do like a big group shot of all of them together at that point in time, where it's just like the person was like, okay, well, all of you just like stand there, and then like they make a picture, they paint another portrait that's like all of the Straw Hats together, and stuff like that. And I would just find that so fun to see. I highly doubt that's going to actually happen in the manga or the anime, but I mean, like, we get group shots of them a lot in the anime and everything, but there's not ever like a photographer around and go, okay, everybody stand still while I take these pictures. We're gonna have a scrapbook later. We don't ever see that. But like, I like that concept. So that's what we have for that. It's the last one. I still have one more technically to record that'll go out before this one, but this is the last one that'll be going up. I'll put my mask back on one more time. I like this mask. It's pretty. It has flowers. But so that's what I have. Happy Halloween for the past month that these have been going up. Happy Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, whichever one you refer to it as. If you celebrate it, then that's great. If you've never heard of it, go look it up. It's an awesome idea. And I just, happy Halloween, happy Day of the Dead, All Saints Day, Souls Day, whatever one you refer to it as. All of that together. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. What do you know of death? Have you ever died? You think death will preserve your cause forever? Ridiculous.
Death leaves nothing behind. Once a person passes on, nothing remains but dead bones. If there is one thing I can't stand, it is a person with no respect for life.